In 2024, Electricité de France issued a statement announcing that due to inflation, the continued impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the multiple shocks brought by Brexit, the completion time of the Hinkley Point C nuclear power plant will be postponed to 2029. However, if you know a little about this project, you will know that it was actually launched as early as 2008. Now 16 years have passed, and the progress is still slow. It is worth mentioning that France was not the only one involved in this project at the beginning. China's Guangdong Nuclear Power Group was also one of the important partners. As early as 2016, the UK took the initiative to invite Chinese companies to join the Hinkley Point C nuclear power plant project. However, within a few years, in order to cater to the United States suppression of China, the UK decided to exclude Chinese companies from the project cooperation, and the reason they gave was the so-called unsafe factors. But ironically, China's nuclear power production capacity has not only not been hindered, but has increased by more than 5 times, and now the annual nuclear power generation has reached 440,000 GWh. And now, China is even building the world's first thorium-based molten salt reactor nuclear power plant. This makes people wonder, why did the UK invite Chinese companies to participate in the Hinkley Point C project? Is it because of China's withdrawal that the project is in trouble? If you like our video content, please click to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can receive all our latest video content. Now, let's get into today's topic. Britain is one of the earliest countries in the world to develop nuclear power. As early as the 1950s and 1960s, they had already started to build a number of nuclear power plants. At that time, the British government formulated a huge plan, invested about £300 million, and finally built 14 nuclear power plants. These nuclear power plants once provided about 25% of the electricity for the whole of Britain, greatly alleviating the pressure of energy demand at that time. At that time, Britain also joined the International Forum on Generation 4, an international organization dedicated to promoting the research and development and application of new generation nuclear power technology, and Britain also played a very active role in it. However, since the mid-1970s, although Britain has put into operation 14 second-generation nuclear power units, it has not continued to build new nuclear power plants since then. The pace of nuclear energy development has slowed down and almost stagnated. It was not until 20 years ago that the British government announced the largest nuclear energy expansion plan in recent years, the Hinkley Point C nuclear power project. This project is regarded as the perfect antidote for the UK to solve the energy crisis, and it is even predicted that by 2050, the UK's nuclear energy production will quadruple. As early as 2009, France had set its sights on the UK's nuclear power market. It first acquired British energy company for £12.4 billion, and then participated in a 20% equity cooperation through Electricité de France, actively laying out the UK's nuclear power projects. However, this seemingly strong cooperation did not go as smoothly as expected. Due to internal financial difficulties, Electricité de France has been hesitant and procrastinating on the final decision of nuclear power investment. In 2013, Electricité de France decided to seek help from the then-rising Chinese companies and proposed a proposal to jointly develop the UK nuclear power market. Subsequently, the two sides officially launched cooperation consultations. It is worth noting that after participating in the cooperation, Chinese companies were kicked out of the project by the UK. What is going on? Based on the long-term cooperative relationship between China and France in the field of nuclear power, France actively promoted China General Nuclear Power Group to participate in the UK's nuclear power projects. For the UK, this is undoubtedly an excellent choice. On the one hand, CGN has rich nuclear power technology and construction experience. On the other hand, their participation also ensures the smooth progress of the project. Therefore, in September 2016, CGN and EDF officially signed a series of nuclear power construction agreements in the UK. According to the agreement, The two parties will jointly invest £46 billion to build 3 nuclear power plants in the UK, namely Hinkley Point C, Sizewell C, and Bradwell B. Among them, Hinkley Point C is the top priority project, and China's Guangdong Nuclear Energy Company holds a 33.5% stake in the project. According to the plan, this project is planned to be completed in 2025 and will be jointly promoted by EDF and Chinese companies. Originally, everyone thought that the cooperation between China, France, and the UK could be smoothly promoted. After all, the project is huge in scale and can bring win-win results to all parties. However, in 2019, the U.S. Department of Commerce included China General Nuclear Power Group and its 3 affiliated companies in the entity list of the Ministry of Commerce on the grounds of espionage. Soon after, the British media also took the opportunity to attack. After the UK eliminated Huawei equipment, they began to hype the potential security risks of Chinese-funded nuclear power plants. Therefore, the British government launched an investigation into the Hinkley Point C project in the name of national security, claiming that China might use its technical role in the nuclear power plant to add vulnerabilities to the computer system, thereby being able to shut down the UK's energy production at any time. Under this pressure, the British government made an important decision to use government funds to forcibly acquire 20% of the shares of the nuclear power plant project, and the target was exactly the shares of China General Nuclear Power. Faced with the unreasonable actions of the British government, Beijing has also made solemn representations many times, trying to ensure that the Hinkley Point C nuclear power plant project can proceed smoothly as planned. However, the British government does not seem to take these representations seriously at all. Instead, it continues to artificially set up various obstacles in the project cooperation, creating many difficulties for Chinese companies. Finally, in 2022, the British government completely excluded China General Nuclear Power Group from the nuclear power project as it wished, and its shares were taken over by the French National Electricity Company, and the subsequent construction was also completely handed over to the French Electricity Company. Surprisingly, less than 2 years after China withdrew, Western media began to frequently report that the project was in various difficulties, the construction period was greatly delayed, and the costs continued to rise, all of which caught people off guard. The Hinkley Point C project, which was originally regarded as the key to the UK's energy transformation, is now facing unprecedented challenges. Some media even speculated that this project may follow the footsteps of Japan's Hitachi Group's nuclear power project in Wales, facing the embarrassing situation of the contractor withdrawing midway and the project being unfinished. This makes people wonder, is it true that without Chinese companies, the construction of nuclear power plants in the UK can't be built? In fact, the initial total investment plan for the Hinkley Point C project was £18 billion. But by 2023, this cost is expected to suddenly soar to more than $40 billion. By 2024, EDF further disclosed that the construction cost had soared to $60 billion. In just over a decade, the budget of this nuclear power project has almost tripled. The main reason for the soaring cost is the repeated delays in the project. In addition to the lack of sufficient technical support in the UK itself, EDF itself is also facing a series of challenges. As early as 2015, CGN and EDF signed the Industrial Cooperation Agreement for new nuclear power projects in the UK. At that time, the cooperation between the two parties seemed to be going smoothly. However, in 2016, EDF announced that its net profit had fallen by 68%, its stock price had fallen by half, and it fell into severe financial difficulties. This means that the cost of the Hinkley Point C project has far exceeded the market value of EDF, and it is undoubtedly a heavy burden to carry such a huge project. What's worse is that EDF's return on investment in the UK is extremely low. Take 2023 as an example. The company's investment in the UK is as high as €3.6 billion, but its revenue is only a pitiful €3.4 billion. This extremely unbalanced situation between input and return undoubtedly doubled the pressure on EDF in promoting the project. At the same time, the British government was unwilling to take due responsibility for the project. The two sides were arguing back and forth between shirking responsibility, causing the project to almost come to a standstill. What is even more troubling is the personnel issue. Due to the withdrawal of Chinese companies, EDF has suffered a serious shortage of talent in nuclear power plant construction, especially in the highly skilled field. Earlier, Western media reported that in order to ensure that the maintenance of nuclear power plants in France is completed on time, EDF had to urgently recruit hundreds of welders from Canada and the United States. The talent shortage is not just a problem for France. In fact, it has affected the whole of Europe. Since the Fukushima nuclear power accident, many European countries have reduced the proportion of nuclear power, resulting in a significant shortage of talent reserves in the nuclear power field. The younger generation's reduced interest in this industry, coupled with the gradual retirement of experienced professionals, has caused a gap in the supply of talent in Europe's nuclear power-related fields, which is not a problem that can be easily made up in the short term. It is estimated that this talent generation gap phenomenon will continue for quite some time. But since China lost interest in the project, EDF has not been able to find a new partner. This is the key factor that has led to the continued delay and even possible early end of the new nuclear power plant plan advocated by the UK for many years. After the outbreak of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, the burden of nuclear power plants in France suddenly increased, and maintenance tasks followed one after another, and the pressure was unprecedented. Coupled with the impact of the global supply chain crisis, even large companies like EDF need a strong partner in all aspects to jointly cope with the growing external risks. In the view of EDF, although the British government wants to vigorously promote nuclear power projects, it is almost impossible to achieve these ambitious plans without China's participation. In fact, the attitude of Western countries towards Chinese high-tech enterprises has become more and more tit-for-tat in recent years. Many companies have been added to the so-called entity list, and more companies are facing the risk of being included. It seems that these actions are intended to protect their own interests, but the actual effect is not as good as they thought, but they have put themselves in more trouble. As Chinese companies withdrew from the Hinkley Point C nuclear power plant project, the project has long been caught in many challenges, and whether the subsequent nuclear power projects can be carried out as planned is still full of great uncertainty. So, the question is, do you think this nuclear power plant can be built successfully without the support of Chinese companies? To not miss out on our future projects and news updates, please make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We will continue to provide you with more exciting and interesting content.